Whether you're planning to indie publish or to go trad publishing, you do need to know the difference between a synopsis, a blurb, and a log line. Writers often confuse these three, so let's talk about what's the difference and where you're going to need them. Welcome to Ginger's Creative Corner. We are nerdy Christian storytellers over here, and we often talk about storytelling through a Christian lens, where we help you create professional quality work that both the Christian and secular community would enjoy. All right, first let's talk about a synopsis. A lot of people say synopsis when they're actually talking about blurbs, and a synopsis is a whole other thing. If you are pursuing traditional publishing, a synopsis is going to be an essential part of your pitch package, whether you're sending it to a literary agent or straight to a publisher who doesn't require one. Along with the pitch package, you always have your query letter, which includes a blurb, and you usually have sample pages as well. Plenty of people talk a lot about the query letter because that's your first foot in the door to get an agent, but a synopsis is also important. But if you're not going trad publishing, you might still need one as an indie author. Many professional editors do ask for a synopsis because it helps them understand your manuscript and what level of editing you might actually need. So what is a synopsis? It's designed to let agents or editors know the overview of your entire story. So you're not going to leave any mystery here. You will put all the spoilers for your main plot and your main character or characters if you have more than one POV. This lets them see that your story has a comprehensive arc, as same with your character. So if your synopsis doesn't show a promising, strong arc in either the plot or the character, you might get a pass from literary agents, and an editor might recommend developmental editing before you start with line edits. So you're going to summarize all of the twists, turns, character arcs, and yes, the ending. Now there is a traditional format for synopsis and an easy guide for crafting your own. A synopsis is typically expected to be about 800 to 1,000 words, really no more than 2 single-space pages. Some agents or editors might be more specific. They might say, hey, we want an 800-word. Others might give you the grace up to 1,000 words, but typically you're not going to go over 1,000 words. And yes, it doesn't matter if you wrote an 80,000-word book or 120K. You're still going to want to keep your synopsis at this length. As for the text format for writing your synopsis, think about a business letter. You're not going to indent your paragraphs, and you're going to leave a space between paragraphs. Now, the tricky part for writing your synopsis is you still want it to be as entertaining as possible while not getting too flowery because you got to be concise with your word count. So you do want to use active voice. And try to throw in some of your writing style if you can. If you're writing a humorous book, this is a good time to show some of your humor. If you're writing something more serious or darker, you want to convey that sense during the synopsis. Now, like I said, this is the tricky part for a synopsis, but your most important part of it is going to be that word count, so don't go over. But if you can flavor your synopsis with your unique voice, you will definitely stand out in a sea of very dry synopses. Also, important point, keep it concise. Only hit important plot points and only mention side characters if they're actually needed to understand the main story. This isn't a time, as much as you might love your side characters, if they're not needed to comprehend the full scope of the story and your main character's personal arc, leave them out at this point. Also, don't include every subplot. You really just want to hit on that main plot or anything that's needed to understand the ending. And if you stick with a 3-paragraph format, this will expedite your writing. So paragraph 1, you're going to introduce your characters, the setting, the conflict, which typically is the inciting incident. That's all you really need in this first paragraph. Paragraph 2, you're going to have the major plot points, conflicts, and only the characters required for the story's conclusion to make sense. Then we get to paragraph 3. This is where you're going to add how the major conflict is resolved, and how the main character changes from the beginning to the end, so their personal character arc. And if you're writing your synopsis and you don't have a strong story arc or a strong character arc, that's your cue. You're not ready to query yet, or maybe even find an editor, because you need to go back and do some developmental editing on your own, if you can, to figure out what's missing. So that is a basic synopsis. They're not the most fun to write. They're not the most fun to read, but they are an essential part of your pitch package if you are going trad, and they're important if you're trying to get an editor. Professional editors will ask for one. If they don't ask for one, they might be a newer editor. If you like what we do here at Ginger's Creative Corner, there are many ways to support us. We are now open to YouTube memberships, which is really awesome. So if you want to be a member, you can sign up for that, or you can support us on our Substack, or even maybe buy some of our merch. We'll be adding more to that as time goes on, but as some of you might know, it's just me and my brother doing everything, so we get things done as we can. Now, as far as memberships go, I am wanting your guys' opinions. What perks would you like to see as a member? We are dedicated here to not having paywalls to knowledge, so we aren't going to have really any exclusive videos for members. Part of my frustration with a lot of the Christian writing community is paywalls, so we're dedicated to not having those. But we do want to give you guys some perks if you are monetarily supporting us. So let me know what you'd be interested in seeing, and we will do what we can to make it happen. All right, so a synopsis, no secrets, tells you everything that happens. A blurb is very much the opposite of a synopsis. Think of a blurb like your book's trailer, and not one of those Netflix trailers that tells you everything that happens in the story. The blurb is the back of the book snippet. So, this is the part that you read to see if you even want to pick up a book. So, your blurb is going to be extremely important. It's also a huge part of your query letter. So, if you're going trad publishing, you need to have this blurb excellent so you can grab a literary agent because they're reading hundreds of thousands of blurbs and you want yours to stand out. And the same goes if you're an indie author. This is the part on the back of your book. This is the part that people read when they're shopping on Amazon. And if your blurb is unprofessional, they're not going to pick it up. And if it's not interesting, they're also not going to pick it up. So take your time on the blurb. Your blurb is going to be typically around 150 to 200 words max. And your job for the blurb is to entice the reader to read it. So unlike a synopsis, you do not want to give spoilers. So keep your mysteries, but present your mysteries. It'll make people interested. Other places that you'll use a blurb aside from the back of the book or for a literary agent, you'll also need your blurb to get an editor because editors do want to be interested in your book before they accept you as a client. You'll need them to try to grab alpha or beta readers and then eventually ARC readers. So the stronger your blurb, the easier all phases of your publishing journey for that book is going to be. I can't say this enough. Do not rush the blurb. This is what's going to sell your book. The first draft that you write should not be the one that you use. Even if you're used to writing blurbs a lot, there's still going to be tweaks that you'll want to make. And if you're not used to writing blurbs, be ready to write the blurb so many times that you're going to start to hate it. So let's talk about the blurb format and some extra advice for writing blurbs. So first, we're going to have the hook. This is your first sentence, and this really needs to seize a reader's attention. So you don't want to do something generic. You maybe want to state something that is unusual or something you know your target audience is really going to be looking for. This is really going to be the most unique spin or interest point for your story. 2, situation. You want to make the situation clear. So who is the main character, not just their name, but who they are, where they are, and then what they're up to. Next, you're going to throw in the problem. So what issue does the main character have to overcome? So this will typically be the inciting incident. Next is obstacles. What's going to get in their way from solving this problem? And the stakes. So what happens if the character fails? What will they, or even the world, lose? And the last thing you want in your blurb is the cliffhanger. So typically what your character stands to lose is going to be your cliffhanger. So the stakes need to be clear and they need to be interesting and or unique enough that the reader is like, oh, I want to see how this story plays out. And I know that's a lot of information to convey in 150 to 200 words. That's why writing blurbs is its own art form. I think most authors, we shake our heads because we can write a 100,000 word book, but trying to summarize that in less than 200 words is often very frustrating. So other pieces of blurb advice. Use keywords. If you can add keywords to your blurb without sacrificing the length or the quality, absolutely do so. Keywords are going to help readers find your book, not just readers, but readers who would be interested in your book. So unfortunately, you're going to have to do some keyword research for the genre, the type of book, kind of see what words your readers are looking up to find new books. And keep these in mind when writing your blurb. Do read many, many blurbs in your genre. And most importantly, read the blurbs that people are buying. This will let you see how successful authors in your genre are writing their blurbs, and this lets you know what blurbs are hooking readers. Reading many blurbs will also help you get a feel for how they are written, the general format, and where you can kind of break away from that format. Do put a lot of work in that first sentence. Like I said, this is your hook. If you cannot catch someone's interest in that very first sentence, they may not make it to the cliffhanger. And do get lots of eyes on your blurb. I definitely recommend for your first few passes, get other writers to read your blurb. They're going to be able to help you on a more fundamental level to improve it, and then get reader feedback. See if it interests them and get detailed feedback if you can. What about it's not interesting? Are the stakes not clear enough? Is it too long? See what readers are thinking when they read your blurb. There are many, many writer groups and places like Facebook where people are more than happy to help you for free. So you don't necessarily have to go and pay for help. But if you find that you are really struggling even with somebody's help, you could always pay a professional to help you with your blurb. On that note, there's always something you could tweak and fix, and you're going to be working on this blurb probably until your eyes go cross, unless you have just a really good talent for writing blurbs, and some writers do, and more power to you guys. But the rest of us, at some point, we have to understand enough will be enough. At some point, you do need to stop tweaking it and just let it go. Right, so we have our synopsis, which is going to be a summary of your entire book in 800 to 1,000 words. All spoilers, main important info. Blurb is the back of the book. Entice your reader, leave some mysteries, make it exciting. Next, let's talk about the logline / elevator pitch. An elevator pitch and a logline are the same thing. They're just, the terms are used interchangeably. This is going to be an even more boiled down version of your blurb. So if you thought the 200 words was hard, we're about to make it a little bit harder. This is going to be the quickest answer to that question, what's your book about? If you can memorize your logline, I highly recommend memorizing your logline. You'll be able to pitch it to readers you meet out in the wild who might be interested in your book, friends, family, or even literary agents if you're going to pitch. So when you're writing this logline, imagine that you're on an elevator, you just discovered that they're the literary agent of your dreams, and you have 10 seconds to pitch this to them before they reach their floor. You need to capture the big picture description of your main character and the core conflict in a single sentence. So this is going to be 40 words or fewer. Like I said, you will need your logline or your elevator pitch for literary agents, readers, and publishers. And if you can catch someone's attention with just your logline, you have a great foot in the door. You can also use this logline in your marketing materials and your queries. Now, there is a typical format that you can follow for your elevator pitch. So typically, you're going to have who the main character is, what happens to them, they must, and then whatever they have to do to solve the problem. In this format, you will see over and over again in Loglines, and you might see some little tweaks. So I'm going to show you two that follow this exact formula, and then one where it still has all the same elements, but in a little bit different order. And then see if you can guess what stories these loglines come from. A 16-year-old huntress volunteers to take her sister's place in a publicized life or death game where only one of 24 children will survive. All right, take a guess. All right, it is from the Hunger Games. So here we're telling who the main character is. 16-year-old huntress. We're not using names. Names have no meaning in a logline at this point. You want to give a sense of who the character is. So she's 16 years old. We're already getting, okay, this is probably YA, right? Huntress, so it's a girl who is a hunter, so that's going to be something unique about her. She volunteers to take her sister's place and a publicized life or death game. This is a unique aspect about this story. So we know her sister was supposed to be in a publicized life or death game, but now she's taking their place, where only one of 24 children will survive. So what makes this unique is that, yeah, it's a death game, but it's all children, and only one of them gets to survive. And there's going to be 24 of them. So it's a competition, a very deadly competition. All right, example two. A young man is transported to the past, where he must reunite his parents before he and his future cease to exist. Can you guess what that one is? Back to the Future. Watch that one all the time again. So here we don't have quite the same unique characterization as we did with Katniss. Here we say a young man. It still gets across that it's going to be someone who's a bit younger, probably teenager, young adult, and it's a male character. He's transported to the past, so we have time travel. So automatically, if you like time travel stories, it should already have piqued your interest. And then now we know the conflict is that he needs to get his parents back together or his future won't exist. And that's the unique states. So when it comes to time travel, there's all kinds of way things play out. But we know here, his time travel, it's important that he get something done or he won't exist. All right, now example three, we have all the same information, but in a slightly different order. An angel is sent from heaven to help a desperately frustrated businessman by showing him what life would have been like if he had never existed. It's a Wonderful Life. Here we actually have what's happening to the main character come first. An angel sent down to help him. And then we have the descriptor of the main character. He is a desperate businessman. So we know this is going to be probably more targeted to adults because he is a businessman. And we know that he is desperate. So there is a conflict going on in his life. And we're not quite sure what it is yet, but it could be money, it could be just life situation. And to solve the problem, he has to see what his life would be like if he never existed. So this shows you the unique premise, but it's not necessarily perfectly in that same format as the others, but hopefully you get a kind of general idea of how these log lines work. The biggest recommendation, I know us creative people, we always want to try to find a new way to do stuff, but if you are not established in the industry, don't stray from this formula. It is a working formula for a reason. It's going to grab people's attention. Once you have a name that people know, then you can start experimenting. But for 99% of us, stick to the formula. All right, now my advice number one, like I said earlier, do not use your protagonist's name in your logline. If possible, describe what makes them unique. And you want to also include a rough estimate of their age. So whoever hears your log line can go ahead and start putting together who the target audience is. Is this going to be for kids, teenagers, or adults? All right, advice number two, set the tone with your log line. If you're writing a serious high stakes story, you're going to want to keep your wording to indicate that it is serious and high stakes. If you're writing something fun or more lighthearted, you're going to keep your words fun and lighthearted. Now, the biggest one, this is advice for both your logline and your blurb. Do not be vague. And if you aren't specific enough in your logline or even in your blurb, your story is going to sound like every other story. The thing about writing books is there really are no unique ideas. What is unique is the combination of them and how it unfolds. So you need to show the reader that your idea is put together in a unique way. For an example, a more vague description of the Hunger Games might be something like a teen must fight for her life. It's true, that's what the story is about, but there's nothing for the reader to grab onto and nothing very interesting. A teen fighting for their life in a fiction novel is extremely common, and it doesn't give us any idea of the world building, the stakes, what's unique about it. It doesn't even tell us what the genre is. And that same concept goes to your blurbs as well. If you are too vague about the stakes in your blurb, it's going to sound like every other story. So think about what makes your book unique. What cool combo have you put together? What new take on old tropes do you have? Think about all those things, jot a whole bunch of ideas down, and figure out how you can pitch it in a accurate way to your story, but also in a way that shows readers it is different. And if you absolutely cannot figure this out, you might not have a unique enough idea. It might be time to go back and do some developmental editing or shelve the project for a while if you really can't figure anything out. Or if you're a humongous self critic, it could be good to get some outside perspective. Have someone read it, get their honest feedback, and maybe have them come up with a quick log line if they're good at that kind of stuff. So remember, no matter how you plan to publish, having your synopsis, your blurb, and your log line together is going to help you pitch to readers, agents, and editors. And most of all, don't get discouraged about this part of the writing process. It's not as exciting as the book, but it's so necessary. And many writers find it to be very frustrating. So you're in good company. The good news is, though, once you've been in practice on writing these, they should start getting easier every time you write a new book. Like all skills, it simply takes practice. So get out there, write some good stories. And as always, like Colossians 3:23 says, do all your work as if you're doing it for the Lord, which means striving for excellence.